Welcome to our 16th episode of Life Between the Notes, which is sponsored by the York Youth Symphony Orchestra. The YYSO creates a unique opportunity for elite youth musicians to learn challenging repertoire with peers, perform in a variety of venues, and expand their perspective of what it means to be a musician. The YYSO is committed to being the finest youth orchestra organization in the region, both on the stage and off the stage and in the community. We are enjoying our 2022-23 season under the direction of Maestro Brian Buderbaugh and invite all listeners to our winter concert at the Appel Center on Sunday, March 12th at 3 p.m. Be a part of the first collaboration in 8 years between longtime friends, York Youth Symphony Orchestra, and York County Senior Honors Choir. These organizations bring the best high school musicians from throughout the region to perform unsurpassable repertoire. Another Day, Another Destiny features Dan Forrest's Requiem for the Living, a 20th century sound in an ages-old form. Thematic material ranges from the cathedral to the movie screen in this at times haunting, at times aggressive, and at times peaceful meditation on life. This large work is bookended by Verdi's overture to La Forza del Destino and One Day More from Les Miserables, an epic conclusion to this can't-miss concert. Come enjoy over 100 of the area's finest high school musicians sharing the stage together for one afternoon only. And now, here is Todd's Life Between the Notes. Welcome everyone to Life Between the Notes, where we are going beyond the bio and bringing you interviews of your favorite South Central Pennsylvania musicians. I'm Kirsten Myers, a local oboist living in the Lancaster area, and with me again, and as always, is Morgan Davis, a local flutist in the Lancaster area. So hello, Morgan.
Hi.
Hi. Today's Friday. Are you excited?
I am. I'm so glad. Every day this week felt like Thursday from Monday on. So,
oh, yeah, that's
ready.
not good.
Yeah, it was a long week.
And are the cats with you today?
No, I think like the times that we talk, they're like already settled into like post-breakfast nap. So
okay.
We'll see if I get one in the midst here.
Okay, well that's good. I know I have Bisa roaming around here. She was just here earlier, and
yeah,
she was the one, like we just recently recorded with Brian Norcross, and she was like meowing through the entire introduction, I think. So,
yeah,
anyway.
it just keeps it interesting.
Yes, well, you know, that's part of the charm, right? So anywho, so today we are so excited to have local, well, is it trumpeter or trumpetist or
trumpeter? Trumpeter or trumpet player, I believe.
Okay, all right.
This is like the flutist or flautist debate.
Exactly. Okay, so trumpeter. Okay. Well, there we go. And he is our first trumpet player. So it's Todd Fulginiti joining us for our 16th episode. And to me, Todd is in the middle of such an interesting career. It has run the gamut from public school teaching to freelance performer to writer. And here is a little bit more about him before we actually talk to him. He is waiting so patiently. Thank you, Todd. But musically, Todd has earned praise for his work in a wide variety of styles, including jazz, rock, funk, classical, theater, and many others. In addition to performing with the groups featured at toddfulginiti.com, Todd is a freelance artist performing with dozens of groups and as a soloist. Career highlights include single night engagements with Ray Charles, Frankie Valli, Maceo Parker, And as a recording artist, Todd has contributed to over a dozen projects with both his own bands and as a guest artist. Across the airwaves and on stages, Todd's arrangements and compositions continue to be performed around the country and internationally by both professional and student groups. Todd spent 25 years teaching elementary general music, classroom music, and chorus. He resides in Lidditz, Pennsylvania with his wife. And outside of music, Todd writes a blog at 5o'clockshadow.life. He contributes articles to Wise and Shine magazine and is a big Philadelphia Eagles fan. So with that, Todd, we are so happy to have you join us today.
Glad to be here.
Yeah, thank you. So before we get into the music stuff, I hate to actually talk about sports, but so you're a big Eagles fan, and we are recording this just a few days before the Super Bowl.
Yep.
So you must be really, really excited about your weekend.
Yeah, I feel like ever since the playoffs began, everything that happens in between football games is just killing time until the next game starts.
Yeah.
It's nothing really that important. Just when's the next one?
Right. Yeah. Well, that's great. So, well, do you have any predictions that you want to make? I mean, this episode is going to air after the results, but
I think the Eagles win in a close game by about 3 or 4 points, and both teams score more than 30.
Okay.
But yeah, it should be exciting to watch. I think there's going to be like touchdowns everywhere, points all over the place.
Okay.
But the Eagles should win because overall they're just better. They have a more solid team. But, you know, when you go against Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid, weird stuff happens. So it should be a while.
And Andy Reid is back. Yeah. So my husband is a huge like Philly sports fan as well. So you know, I watch a little bit.
You have to, right? You can't escape it.
Yes, exactly. I'm sure I go practice during football. Not really, no. So awesome. Well, we have a lot of ground to cover. So the first thing I wanted to ask you was, you live in Lancaster County currently. Have you always lived here?
Yeah. I was born here and I grew up in Lancaster, and I lived in Lancaster until 2001, and then we moved to Lidditz. So I've only ever lived in Lancaster and Lidditz.
Okay. All right. Yeah. And so what school district did you go to?
Lancaster.
Oh, you were in Lancaster, like
Yep. Okay. I went to Hamilton Elementary School, which is super small, and then Wheatland, and then McCaskey.
Okay. All right. Great. So when did you start playing trumpet?
I started in 4th grade, you know, like regular band kid. Yeah.
Had you done anything earlier than that? Like, had you done like any piano or?
No. Yeah, I'm not even sure why. I knew I wanted to play the trumpet, and I'm not sure why. Like with Hamilton, it was a really small school, so we only had one class of each grade. Like nowadays, a lot of times you have like 4 4th grades in a school. We had one, so there was like, 15, 20 kids. So there was nobody in band, and the band director's trying to sell everyone on the instruments that they thought they needed to make the band at least like sound like anything with that few number of kids. And they wanted me to play trombone, but I don't know. I just wasn't into it. I don't know. I didn't have any like trumpet songs in mind, or didn't really know any trumpet things. Something told me that's the instrument I should play, and it wasn't trombone. So, so I just started, and
yeah, that's interesting, because sometimes we're just drawn to a certain instrument, and it is inexplicable.
My daughter for a while played violin, and she got hooked on that because of the Toy Story movies. Toy Story 2, I think, has this. Well, that's when they go into Woody's show, and the band for his show is actually this great cowboy band called Riders in the Sky, and they were playing on that, and she got into the violin sound. So that's at least, but I don't have any stories like that. I don't know where
Right.
trumpet came from. That was just, that was, I don't know. That's what I wanted to do.
Maybe you just
No
thought it
reason.
looked cool.
Maybe. Well, now
I had that.
I know people that I was smart enough to know that trumpets are cheap to buy relatively, and they're easy to carry around. So I don't have to set up gear, and I don't have to spend like tens of thousands of dollars on a new instrument.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just bought a new flute, so mine's easy to carry, but it's not cheap.
Yeah, not so cheap.
But I had that experience when I picked the flute because I was a little younger than beginning band age. I had been playing the piano, and it was pre when we started an instrument at school. It was even before we did like flutophone or whatever. We did flutophone, not recorder. But I just wanted to play the flute. I have no idea why. Like if I think I can't, doesn't matter. I've talked to my parents about it. I have no clue why that was the instrument I had to play.
Cool.
Yeah. And it was, and my son too, like he was just drawn to the French horn. Like that's what he wanted to do that. And then somebody else was trying to convince him that he should play the trumpet. And he was like, no, I'm not doing that. And he's still playing horn in college. So
Wow.
yeah.
Nice.
Yeah. So then were your parents musical? Like
Not really. I remember Dad playing like drums on the dashboard in the car, and that's it. I mean,
right.
Yeah, and Mom liked to sing. I think Mom was in the her high school musical, but that's it.
Yeah,
nothing big.
Right.
Yeah, they were music fans. They liked a lot of different stuff, and so did my extended family. But I'm not aware of anyone really playing anything, any seriously.
So then when you were like in high school, like were you involved in any festivals? Like were you like competitive with it?
Well, no. Well, I went to county band. And I don't know how they do it at the time, or how they do it now, but at the time, you would go out for district band, and that's where like the good players got in districts. And then if you were like kind of good, but not good enough for districts or didn't make it, then county band was kind of like, I always felt like it was the JV team of districts. Now, I know that's different for choir. My daughter went all through the choir stuff, and that's whole different. They don't do it that way, but I always felt like county band was for the leftover kids, and I went to that 2 years, so I never made districts. And my senior year, I thought I had a good chance, and I had this. I know trumpet players might be able to relate to this. It's high school, right? So you have pimple problems sometimes, and I had one like right on my lip, right, the mouthpiece, like the mouthpiece rested there, so I just couldn't get my mouthpiece to feel right. And we had to play this quiet section, and I thought I would try to be real impressive and really overplay the dynamics. But when I tried to get that quiet, because I didn't have my position right there because of that pimple, it just went and no sound came out. So I was like, well, I guess that's it for me. And it was. So I didn't make it. I missed by like half a point. I know, I would have made it for sure. But anyway, I didn't do it. I never got to any of that stuff, which, it was kind of a bummer. In college I did, but I don't know. I guess I was like a late bloomer.
Well, yeah, I mean, I completely like get that. Like I wasn't entirely like competitive with it myself. And like I made districts one time, and it was when I was in 10th grade, when I was really not even interested in being involved. And I didn't want to go. I was like, oh.
Did you end up going?
I did in 10th grade. But then after that, like it never worked out. Like it just, again, like, you lose by like 1/10 of a point or whatever,
Yeah.
And, when I cared, then it didn't go well.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Too much pressure.
Yeah. Well, and I think too, it's like, you don't necessarily have to be, at that kind of level to even like make a career out of music, and it's not like the be all end all. you know,
Right.
as sometimes I think like high school students tend to think.
Yeah, I guess I mostly, one of the reasons I wanted to go out for districts, I don't even know if it was that I wanted to go out. It's that there was other people in the trumpet section that were doing it, and I felt like I needed to try and keep up with them. Oh, well, this is what the good players do, so if they're doing that, I better do that too. And
Right.
I don't know if I necessarily wanted to do it or not. And then once you get into practicing the piece, like kind of like exposed all of my problems, and I was like, whoa, I need to get better. But I apparently didn't have enough time to get better before the audition.
Yeah. Well, and go ahead, Morgan.
Oh no, I was just gonna say that's still, I think that like when I'm teaching now, I'm teaching my students like those pieces, it helps to have this like marker you're shooting for. But there is this sense when you're that age that making those festivals is this really big determining factor in your abilities. And where I grew up, in Pennsylvania, was really rural, and we didn't have anything else to gauge it by. There weren't youth orchestras and that kind of stuff. So it was like, oh, if you didn't make districts, then you probably weren't really that good. So there's like a lot of connotations to the whole process, I think, especially for when you're really in the thick of it as a student.
Yeah, and it's tough. All that stuff where they score you numerically. What's a quarter or a half a point? What is that? So
right. Yeah, and on any given day, those numbers can be like completely
right. Yeah. Right. Yeah, I always thought it would be interesting to do like a total audition replay, have the judges hear the same exact players in the same exact order, give the same exact performance, and see if they scored it the same.
Yeah. I tell my students sometimes I want to go into these district auditions and audition myself and see if I would make it. Because sometimes I don't know if I would.
Well, yeah, because you can't tell like how are they picking the scores. But as a student, I had all kinds of really bizarre experiences with those auditions, like with the way the scores came out at the end. And I think about it every time I judge something. Like I think back to those times in high school and like what was happening when people were giving me scores, and then like what perspective am I taking now on students that I hear play when I have to be a judge. It's really interesting.
Yeah. So in school, well, actually, did you take private lessons then?
Yeah, I did. I took lessons from John Hess, who I still see. Do you know him? You know John?
Yeah.
Well, Morgan knows him better. I just know him from like local 294, So.
Yeah.
He was one of the first people I met when I moved here. So
yeah, he's so nice. He's great. And he runs the our chapter, our local union chapter, and he does like so much work for everyone for that. I took lessons from him at the original Darnell's store on Orange Street for a little while, and then they moved out to Columbia Avenue. Yeah, so I took from him all through high school.
Okay, all right, great. So when did you decide that you were going to make music your career?
Well, I guess there's two ways to answer it. One is I have this memory of being a little kid, thinking I'm just going to play music, and I'm going to like, hopefully people will pay me for that. And you hear people like older people talk about their jobs, or the kid down the street's going to college because he wants to do such and such. So you start wondering, well, what am I going to do? And I just thought I'm just going to play music. And hopefully that'll work out. But in my head, that's something I was always going to be doing. But in a more practical answer would be when I was late in high school, I couldn't decide if I wanted to be a music teacher or an English teacher. I knew it was between those two. And at that time, I wasn't really thinking I knew I was going to always play, but I wasn't thinking of playing music as a way to make a living, because I didn't really know many people that were doing that. Everyone that I knew who was involved in music was a teacher. So I'm thinking, oh, this is what you do. If you want to stay in music and earn a living, you'd be a teacher. So I couldn't decide if I wanted to do that or English. So I was talking to my band director about this, and he said that I didn't understand what he was talking about at the time because I had never been to college. But he said the way they lay the coursework out, if you start in English and change your mind, you'll be like a year or two behind because you won't be able to get all the courses you need in time to graduate. So he said it would probably work out better if you started in music, and then if you change your mind, switch to English, you still have a good chance of graduating on time. So that is the sole reason, the only reason that I picked music over English.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Then it was more
because
practical.
I was just torn. So I'm like, oh, okay, well, I don't want to go to college any longer than I have to. So let's try music first and see how that goes.
Sure.
Yeah, real thoughtful.
Well,
But practical.
like, it is. But then once you started, like, did you ever second guess your decision?
Oh yeah, like every
Oh, you
day.
did? Oh, really?
Yeah. Because everyone's like, oh, college is so fun. I had such a great time. And for me, honestly, college really sucked until about the last year because well, first of all, I didn't know what being a music major would be like, you know. So they said, well, you should be a half decent piano player. And I hadn't touched a piano at all, ever. So John Hess's wife, she's a piano teacher. So I started taking piano lessons from her about like over the summer before my freshman year. And, what can you really do in 3 months? So I came in there expected to have some competence at piano and then build it from there. But I was an absolute 100% beginner. And then a lot of the kids, they came into to their freshman year already having some theory skills, an understanding of theory. And I had none of that whatsoever. And then the big killer was ear training. All the solfege and all that stuff. A lot of those kids had at least some kind of background in that.
Yeah.
Or maybe their piano playing or whatever helped with that. I was just all I could do. I was like an okay trumpet player, that's it. I had none of that other background stuff because at McCaskey they didn't offer that at the time. So man, and then all those courses, my family is so tired of hearing me tell this story. But like, I know, Dad, you had so much, college is so hard. I'm like, but it was because, the normal non-music major takes a course and you get 3 credits, right? But at the time, when the way Millersville was doing it, they wanted you to take so much stuff that they only gave 1 credit per course. And they're the really big time courses, like the ear training course was 1 credit. Theory was 1 credit. And then you have a history course across campus you don't care at all about, 3 credits. So like, what am I going to do? Am I going to put my time and energy into the 1 credit, which will help me in my life, but might blow my GPA up? Or do I ace the history course and flunk out of the music part? So, to me, college was just, it was like the first 3.5 years, I felt like I was just kind of digging myself out of a hole and trying to get like on the level with everybody else. It was difficult.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't repeat that. I wouldn't repeat that experience. No.
Yeah.
The last part was great, but I'm like, hey, where's all this fun everyone's talking about? I'm like, I'm stressed out, and yeah, it was rough.
Right. Yeah, you just feel like you're scrambling all the time, right?
Yeah.
But just that you're right, like the course load of being a music major, because it's like that everywhere. And then, it's still like that at Millersville, where it's, you have to balance out the number of courses you need to take. And that was, I think, true when I was in school. Just feels like a lot to manage. But you talk about ear training. I would not have survived ear training. I took voice lessons in high school, which was great. And I was in choir and I loved to sing at the time. Couldn't pay me to sing in front of people now, but at the time I loved it. And my voice teacher, once he knew I was going to school for music, started doing ear training in my lessons with me. So
awesome.
Without that, I think I would have been totally panicked in ear training class. I mean, just absolutely freaked out. But that little bit of primer,
that's what I was.
Helped me get my feet on the ground.
I felt like, sorry, go ahead.
Well, no, go ahead. I was just going to say, I was that freaked out person because, I didn't have anything like that. I had piano background, So, and I was so grateful for that, because that actually helped then with the ear training, but I had none of that ear training, and I do not have a great voice, and it just, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I feel like with that ear training stuff, I felt like I had sort of an aptitude for it, but it was all just so new. I didn't have any way to frame what I was hearing or anything. And
Right.
yeah, I feel like had I started earlier, things would have went pretty well, but I was just in scramble mode, and I guess it impacted me in my teaching job because, well, first of all, I think the whole ear training thing is, to me, it's the single most important tool that we have as musicians. And I wanted the kids in my elementary music class to do some of that stuff. And I hear other teachers, they're doing those types of things. So I really went heavy on that in my teaching career early on. Yeah, and I mean, I look at this like the stuff that my elementary kids were doing, I couldn't do at the end of my first semester, and as a freshman, because I just was still trying to figure it out. But
but how great for you to do that, though. To like, expose them to that.
Yeah, I was happy with doing it that way, and I mean, it helped with a lot of different things for them, singing and instrument playing and stuff, and I don't know. Yeah, I had to dial that back quite a bit because as time went on, it's off the subject, but like for the first half of my teaching career, when the kids would come into me, they were ready to do something. They were ready to do something mentally intense. And then as time went on, as school hyped up around them in their other classes, when they came into my room, they were kind of done. They were fried. So I don't think they didn't have any mental space left for me to be like dumping that kind of stuff on them. So I kind of veered away from it, and we did not that we didn't play instruments before, but it went from like ear training and theory heavy with instrument playing, and then it kind of gravitated to almost all playing and singing all the time. And I didn't do much of the ear training because they just needed to relax and enjoy themselves for half an hour before they went back to the intensity of the regular classroom. And that was just something that changed over the 25 years I was teaching.
Yeah. Well, and also, how great is that too? I mean, to like shift your focus when you realize that the students are not able to handle what you typically do, and then you change and you like kind of like meet them where they are, kind of.
Right. Yeah. And it's not that the kids got dumber or anything. They were just spent from the higher intensity of the day.
Overloaded.
Yeah.
I see it in my private students now too. I mean, teaching them is different than it was 10 years ago, because their stress and expectations during the day are just so much more. And not that I'm teaching them necessarily different things, but I'm teaching them in a different way. And prioritizing differently and pressing on different things, at different times.
Yeah. So so then you graduated from Millersville. That's where
eventually. Yeah. I did. Talking about, did I second guess it? I walked into the registrar's office to switch my major at least a dozen times. I stopped counting after a dozen, and I went in there and I'm like, well, I'll just give it one more week, and I walked out. But I did that like routinely. So eventually I did graduate. It was 4.5 years. I went part-time one semester because I just like needed to chill out.
Yeah. Well, yeah. And it's, honestly, I mean, there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, you have to take the time that you need, and like, I mean, I'm telling my own children this, it's like, you're on your own timeline, it's like, there's nothing that says that you need to, get your degree in 4 years. There's nothing, I mean, everybody's different, and, you have to go with what works for you.
Yeah.
And I was in school for 5 years. I mean, in college too. So
But I think it's interesting too that you like stuck it out all that time then, you know, that it was so hard, but you still came back and finished what you were doing and you didn't change directions. Cause I know when I was in school, we
Mm,
lost lots of people in that second year of like
Mhm.
really intense theory and ear training. And people just went, nope, not interested, don't want to do it.
Yeah. I think part of the motivation for me to keep going was to be around other people like that and have them, I mean, and see that they had to start from scratch,
Mhm.
and I was like, I don't want to spend those years doing stuff over again.
mm,
So, not that I didn't want to go through life doing a job that I hated just because I trained for it, but I guess not wanting to start over again made me stick it out just one more day or one more week to see what would happen. If it's really that bad, I can drop out next week.
Mhm.
Yeah,
yeah.
but I always felt bad for the people who they go all through school and then 2 weeks into student teaching, they're like, I don't want to do this,
Mhm.
and then they start over. So
Mm,
yeah.
yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's in a way, it's good to find that out when you're student
Yeah.
teaching, but it's also a bummer to find out when you're student teaching.
Mhm,
Too bad they didn't figure it out like as a freshman. But
mhm.
um, yeah, so I guess I was trying to avoid doing that because I didn't want to. Like I was saying, college wasn't very enjoyable for me, so I didn't want to do it again.
Mhm.
Right. Yeah.
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 Yeah. But that's
So,
like a life, sorry, that's like a life thing of just, you know, when things are hard, like it's not always bad that they're hard. You just have to figure out how
Hmm.
do I get to the next thing.
Yeah.
You know, if you think about how we build like good habits in life around like anything that's not enjoyable, exercise or practice or whatever it is. And it's like
Hmm.
I can do one more day or I can do 5 more minutes or you know,
Yep.
and it doesn't mean anything other than it's difficult and you're choosing to
Yeah.
continue.
mhm, yeah.
Yeah.
Perseverance.
Mhm. Mhm.
Yeah. No. So after you graduated, then did you immediately start teaching?
Um. Yes, I had to think about that.
No, that's okay.
Because I'm old and it was a long time ago, but
Not
I
bad.
graduated in December. Um, and yeah, I had interviewed for this job at Henfield. It was a long-term substitute position in band, and I didn't get it. And in the interview, they didn't say anything about also needing a string substitute. So a couple days later, after the interview, they call and they say, "Well, we can't offer you the band job, but do you know how to teach strings?" And I was like, "Oh, sure, yeah." When in reality, I had like 3 string courses. I didn't
Mhm,
know how to teach strings really at all. And Henfield at that time was a really good, strong string district,
mhm,
and maybe they still are. I don't know. So I was like, "Yeah, sure, I can do that." So they gave me that job, and I remember hanging up the phone going, well, you screwed yourself. You'll screw this string job up because you don't know what you're doing, and then nobody will want to hire you again. So, but, I mean, what do you do? You don't,
well, yeah,
hey,
you want
thanks
a
for
job,
the
you
offer,
want to
but
work.
yeah, I can't do
Yeah.
that. No. Um, so that was at Henfield, and that went through from January to the end of the year, and then it continued because the lady I was in for was having some medical issues, and so it continued the entire next year until April. So it was like nearly a year and a half, and I was really into the string thing. I got a lot of help from some great people, and
Mhm,
I really enjoyed it, and I feel like I did a decent job. And just as I was really starting to feel you know, like I knew what I was doing and feeling comfortable, then it was over. So I was then I was subbing the rest of that year from April to the end of the year. And then the entire next year, I was day-to-day subbing. That was really a bummer,
mhm.
to go from that job to, hoping the phone rings every day and doing all
Yeah.
sorts of different stuff. That was a bummer of a year. And then the following year, I started at Warwick part-time. I did that for 2 years, and then after that, they made me full time, and I stayed there until I quit.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, and I only got that Warwick job the original Warwick job that I had was half band, elementary band, and half elementary strings. So that time at Hempfield, really, I guess, qualified me for that Warwick job. Otherwise, I would have needed to lie to Warwick and tell them I knew what I was doing with the strings.
Well, and I think too, like, when any new teacher, especially with music, because it is so varied and there are so many different kinds of jobs, whether it's because we're certified K through 12. And so, and you can only get so much experience in your college experience and student teaching. You're not going to cover it all. And I think, you for a lot of new teachers, you're kind of learning as you go, no matter what,
Yeah, you can only learn so much at college.
Yeah.
Well, even when, if I went to school for 6 years for performance, and like on my instrument, and then when I started gigging after that, it was like, well, I don't know how to do, like, what am I doing? You still feel that way.
Yeah.
Like, I'm sitting in an orchestra going like, I don't belong here. It's just, I think being young, being new, it always has a little bit of that, even if it's something you've trained for.
Yeah, definitely. So, so you then taught you taught for 25 years, correct?
Well, that's the service years are 25. Like if I count years of my life, it's more like 27, 28, but some of that substitute stuff doesn't count the same way. So the number in my head is 25, because that's the number I needed to get to in order to retire or quit. So, but if I count birthdays, there's 27, 28 of them.
Yeah. So then how long had you been thinking that you were going to leave before you actually did?
It was probably 5 years. The last 5 years, I knew I definitely wanted to leave as soon as possible. The last 3 years, I knew that I had a finite amount of time in which I needed to get out before I was going to explode somehow. But prior to that, like, I guess I never intended to really teach the whole 35 years or whatever they determine as a full career. I told my wife about 10 years in that I said, I think probably do 15, 17 years of this, and then I'll try something else. And but then it didn't work out that way, because a steady paycheck is pretty nice when you have kids. So I kept going, and just
so you kind of always knew that, it's I'll leave at some point.
I didn't know it was going to become that urgent for me to have to get out, but I did expect not to do it my entire life.
So what do you think that what was it like that prompted you to that you just had to get out? Was it like a change in like the students and
there were so many things. I'll try. I tend to get more long-winded than usual in this, so I'll try to keep it brief. Well, the first thing was just burnout, because I had been going so crazy the early part of my career. I had all these expectations of myself and things I wanted to do and things I thought would be. I wanted to have this like awesome music program at the school, and it just took a lot of time and energy. And then plus my kids were also small. Plus I'm doing gigs and stuff outside of school. So for some reason, I remember driving down my street to a gig and thinking, like, you can't sustain this much longer. You just can't do this anymore. But yet I kept going. And then I went through a serious burnout, depression. There was a point at which I told my wife, I cannot go back to school next year. I just don't think I can do it. I'm done. And, she was a stay-at-home mom. So we were like figuring how we're going to make that work. And then luckily that summer, the school district changed schedules, and that made a huge difference for me. So I'm like, well, with this new schedule, I'll give it a try. And the new schedule was great. The old schedule was part of the problem with the burnout. um, there was a contractual thing where it had to do with the amount of prep time that special area teachers were going to be guaranteed during the instructional day. And it didn't work out. Like not everyone stuck together. So what ended up happening was the classroom teachers got one set of rules, and the special area teachers were not guaranteed anything, but there was a memorandum of understanding, they called it, in which the administration said they were going to try to provide the same thing that the other teachers had. Well, you know how that goes. They're not guaranteed to do it. There's no teeth in it. So so we were doing like a 25-minute lunch with no prep during the day, every day. And then the argument against that was, well, you know, you still have your prep time after school like a regular teacher does. Not true, though, because after school, I was running musical rehearsal, Orff ensemble, an extra choir, all this other stuff that I felt was good to do. So I had like no time. So that's part of what burnt me out. And some of that's my own fault because, I mean, actually, most of it's my fault because I learned that there's often no sense in exceeding an expectation if the people above you are not on board with that. You know, they don't care. They didn't care that I was doing. I mean, they liked the performances, they liked the whole program, but they weren't invested in all of the things that I did. They wanted me to teach decent general music lessons in my little 30-minute slots, and after that, my job was done. But I had all these other aspirations that I thought of things that we should, you know, be doing. And you know, I mean, it's not that they were unsupportive. I learned that I was killing myself over something that didn't really mean anything to anybody except for me, and you could argue to the kids and, you know, parents, but you know, it's not worth it. So that was one thing that led to it. The other is changing culture of the school. I felt like by the end of my career, I felt like there was almost no difference between regular ed and special ed. And I'm sure a lot of people will disagree with me on that, but there was the special ed element of education grew so much. And that's not something that I trained for, prepared for, or even wanted to do. And then I was faced with it every day. The school culture was that it was all about the individual. And that's something that bothers me deeply about our culture in general. The individual outweighs the, you know, the group. And that was happening. That was very obvious at school. You know, you had these kids flipping out, doing all kinds of crazy behavioral stuff. And the thinking is that it's their right to remain in that classroom at the expense of the education and experience of everybody else. And I just could never get with that. Did it affect me profoundly every day? No, but it did enough that it made the whole teaching experience worse. And for me, just my personality type, I have to believe in what we're doing. It's okay if it's not going well, but I have to believe that the way we're approaching things is right. And I just grew over the years to think that we were doing it completely wrong. And in that way, I remember this guy, Rich Will, he used to teach at Millersville, and in one of our education classes, he wasn't a music guy, he was like the regular education guy, and he was telling us about this at the time. I think it was a new law, and it was the law where it said about students must exist in their least restrictive environment. And he said, this is going to be huge. And we're like, yeah, okay, whatever. You know, but like years later, I keep going back to that. And it was right. It was totally huge, because when you say that a student has to be educated in his least restrictive environment, how that's interpreted in school plays out to be that kid can stay he can stay where he is and disrupt everything else that everyone else is doing and no one's really, it's harder to change that than it is to leave it be. So I just thought that was, I think it's, it's a shame. So, and I couldn't work in that environment. The screaming every day, screaming and throwing desks and stuff like that. And then the kid, I mean, there's no change. You know, misbehaving kids go to the office and they basically get a little pep talk and sent back to the teacher to do the same stuff. The teacher has no tools, you know, except to send them to the higher ups, and they don't do anything. So it just, the entire environment just became something I couldn't deal with. And plus, you know, on a more practical, like I was nothing against elementary kids, but I had been working with the elementary kids since I was 18 years old, you know, and I was kind of like, you know, okay,
hit my limit.
I mean, nothing against the kids, but you know, but it was just time to do something else.
Yeah. So, well, it definitely takes a special personality to, you know, work with children of that age for sure.
Well, I apologize on my failed attempt to keep that brief.
No.
I'm over all my attempts. Yeah,
that's okay. No, I'm so interested in that actually, because I mean, I've gone back and forth with, you know, do I want to be in public school, you know, and because I have an education degree that I have never like formally used. I've subbed and I've interviewed for jobs, and it has just never worked out. And I don't know that it's for me. And I think I would be a lot like you, where I would just get to the point of, you know, of burnout, I think, quicker than what you did.
You know, people say, like friends will say, well, how do I know when it's time to go? And everyone says, you'll know. Well, it's true. There's just every inch of your body says, I had to get out of here. What am I doing here? This is wrong for me. And there's no question about it. So that's just eventually, you know, bubbled up.
Yeah. It's interesting what you articulated about like knowing your personality type and just having to be really on board with the thing you're doing. Because I started school, I never finished my ed degree. I started with a double in ed and performance, and I got into my sophomore year and I was like, nope. And it was instant. It was just like, I do not want to do this. I can't keep taking methods classes and spending so much time on something I knew I didn't want to use. And it just felt like the wrong. So I never got to a point where I like experienced teaching and all of the extra things that come with being in a public school, but you still have that sense, you know, that this is right or wrong for me. And I just knew if I kept doing it, I was going to burn out on everything, because you're spending so much energy somewhere that doesn't fit for you.
Yeah.
And so it was around this time, and I find this interesting too, that at that time, then your kids were older, and then your wife had decided that she wanted to go back to school, right? Or to go to school, and she wanted to become a teacher, an elementary teacher. Right. So you kind of flip-flopped in a way.
We flip-flopped. So we'd be sitting around the dinner table, and you tell stories about your day, and I say stuff that happened at school. And this is when I was totally loving school, and still it's kids, and you got 600 kids in a building. Weird stuff's going to happen sometimes. So I tell the stories, and she's like, oh my goodness, I would never do that job. I would never be a teacher. And then over the next 4 or 5 years, you can see her kind of getting interested in like helping out at the kids in their classroom and stuff like that. And then she's like, I think I'll go to school and be an elementary teacher. And she loves it.
I think that is so cool to me. Yeah. And she's in the Ephrata school district, right?
Yeah, she's in Ephrata. She teaches.
That's where I am.
Okay.
Yeah. Now my kids, they go to Fulton, but
she's at Highland.
Right. Yeah. So
but it worked out really good, because as I was kind of like coming down and down and down, she's going to, and so had she not gotten like the teaching job and have been into it, it would have been, I mean, I still would have quit, but I would have my life would look a lot different. You know, I wouldn't be able to just try and do music and writing and stuff like that. I'd have to get a job that actually, you know, pays every week.
Yeah, well, it's an absolute partnership, you know. Certainly I would not be able to do what I'm doing if my, you know, husband didn't have, you know, the job that he has. So
that, you know, that's sort of reinventing yourself in different stages of life. And I think I'm always impressed when people do that, when you don't just keep doing what you're doing because you've always done it, you know. So you and your wife both, it was like, I'm ready to do something different.
Yeah, there's a lot of interesting things to try in life, you know. You're only going to get to so many, so might as well try as many as you can.
Yeah. But and for both of you, you're both following, you know, what each of you wanted to do, and able to both, you know, follow your interests, and it just worked out. Like,
I'm lucky. I'm lucky.
Yeah, that's great. That's so great. So once you had retired and you were getting, well, I guess through all of this, you had been gigging. I imagine, right? So so then how did you then kind of like reimagine what your career was going to be?
Well, I just wanted to kind of expand what I had. So earlier in my career, I was mostly playing theater shows. And you know, I had a brass quintet and like did a little jazz here or there, but most of my time was taken up playing playing theaters, and I liked it. But you know, it was easy. You know, someone calls you, and then you put the dates in your calendar, and then you go play, and that's it. So I wasn't really. Well, let me back up a minute. I really like Wynton Marsalis, and one of the things that attracted me to him, besides his spectacular playing, is that he does everything. You know, people know him as the jazz guy, but he's an excellent classical player. And you know, when he was younger, he did all kinds of other music, and I really like that because I'm interested in all kinds of different music, and part of the fun for me is to try to play it. So I wanted to be able to play a whole bunch of different styles with the different groups and all that. So, but I wasn't really doing anything about that because I was mostly playing theater stuff, and that took up most of my time. So at one point, I got fired from it was the Fulton. I was playing at the Fulton, and I essentially had a lip injury, which I didn't know that this was a thing. You know, I mean, you know, you pull a hamstring, you pull it, okay, fine. But I never, for some reason, even though I was like a full-grown adult and playing trumpet for a long time, never occurred to me that you could actually, you know, have a facial, So due to overuse, that's what happened. And I didn't play so well. So, so they canned me. And I was like, oh, man, at first I was bummed because I'm like, now what am I, you know, going to do?
It was a regular gig.
That was honestly the best thing that happened to me, because then it forced me to get to work on all of the things that I said I wanted to do, but never did. So, so I started a whole bunch of different groups, and I started working on networking better to get connected with other bands and stuff like that. So I started to do more jazz stuff, which I always wanted to. So I have like a Dixieland or a traditional jazz band, my jazz quartet. At the time I had a brass quintet, all sorts of small ensembles. And I just wanted to play as much as I could with each of those groups, and also be a freelancer that people could call and depend on. And so I started that. That was a long time ago. I think the Fulton came to me in like, I want to say early 2000s.
Okay.
And so I was already kind of doing that while I was teaching. But when I quit teaching, I just wanted to you know, you only have X amount of energy when you're with kids all day, and you want to like, yeah, I want to play, but I should do this or that to help me play more. But I think I'm going to go to bed because I have to deal with kindergartners at 8 o'clock tomorrow. So now that that was going away, then, you know, I was just hoping to expand on that.
Yeah. Yeah. Diversifying that. Yeah. I mean, that's smart. And fun too, I imagine, because you get to play lots of different styles.
Yeah, I love it. I mean, that's what I always wanted to do. So, but like I said, the getting fired from Fulton was the best thing that happened to my playing career.
And what do you enjoy the most about freelancing?
I just like that every day is different, or I like when you get those weekends where you have like a little classical thing, a jazz gig, like a funk rock casino gig. I play cajon and sing. I say sing, but I'm getting more into singing. So I like being able to do different types of music and use different instruments, and also the different people that I'm with on those different gigs. I just really enjoy the variety. And it keeps everything fresh. And I feel like learning something about one genre helps in another in ways that I don't always expect.
Yeah. And so not only also do you you returned to writing as well. Like you had been so interested in English and had considered that as a career too. And now that's also part of what you do for your career now.
Yeah. I started to I started a blog. You know, it was near the end of teaching when like I was just not feeling good overall, and really needed to get out. I kind of just started writing again on a whim. Just I guess I was telling myself stories or trying to get my thoughts together, and then I guess I rediscovered how much I really enjoyed doing that, and I hadn't done it in 20 years or so. So so I started this little blog, 5 o'clock shadow, and then I hooked up with a group called Wise and Shine magazine, and it's basically a shared blog. But the writers are really good, and about half of them are from the US and the other half are from various parts of the world. And it's just interesting to hear what everyone's perspective is on things. And it's nice to be able to chime in with your own. So, yeah, I enjoy doing that. It takes a decent amount of time, but I enjoy it.
Yeah. And on your website as well, I saw that you had like a section on wellness as well, and so you do run a little bit, and you mentioned like being a vegetarian for a while that you were, and I'm just wondering like how your wellness regime like affects like your performance, and how was there anything that like started you on that path?
Yeah.
I think I asked you like just 5 questions in that one sentence, but
no. I laugh because all my stories, they seem to be the same in that there's this point where everything is screwed up, and then I have to do that, and this is one of those stories. So
I find that relatable.
Sure. It's like, this is broken, but we can keep going. No, we don't have to do anything until it's an absolute freaking disaster. So
things get real bad, and then
so I don't remember what my problem was exactly. It was probably part stress, and yeah, my diet was just a mess, and I was not feeling good. So this would have been maybe 2014 or so. I remember my oldest daughter was in like her junior year, and so I had been vegetarian for probably 20 some years at that point. But I guess over time, I just started eating stupidly and got all out of whack, and I was feeling miserable, and like I thought, whatever I'm doing now is not working at all, so I'm just going to scrap it all and do everything the opposite. It's like there's a Seinfeld episode with George where he does everything the opposite. And that's what I was kind of, that's what my diet was modeled after. Okay, I'm vegetarian. We're not doing that anymore. And that was the big, and plus exercising. I was inconsistent. So I just kind of trashed everything. And it worked. So I felt better. I just did everything opposite of what I was doing. And it was good. And then since that time, of course, I've been up and down, you know, sometimes in good shape and running, sticking to my running routine and all that. And then like, you know, you get real busy and get out of sorts. And then, but I always paid a price for that because I just feel worse. You know, I feel like, and then when you get tired, gig to gig, like, I don't like when I'm on a gig wishing it would be over soon, you know?
Yeah.
But there's been a bunch of times, especially this last year. I mean, this was my busiest year this last year. And part of the consequence to that is I didn't take care of myself the way I should. So then I'm not feeling as good. And then you're just running yourself down farther and further until eventually, you know, you hit a bottoming out point. So yeah, I need to make more of an effort to make sure that I take care of myself, so that I don't get into these situations anymore. I seem to be on like a couple years cycle, you know. You get to you're like, oh, I'm never going back there ever again. That's all over in the past. And all of a sudden you get sloppy, diet gets sloppy, get comfortable. Yep.
Yeah.
And then it catches
it's kind of that all or nothing mentality. I think, which I often have had in the past myself, where you just throw yourself into something, but then there's a point where just you start just changing one little thing, and then it can spiral.
Yeah, it's like pulling the string on the sweater. It just slowly unravels, and you don't know. Yeah, but doing yoga and running is very important to me, and I just had to make sure I keep doing it. And I also have to, I mean, my wife is on me all the time to go to bed earlier, which I know would be good. So what happens is, well, you know, you come home from a gig, you know, sometimes the gigs are late and you feel awake. So
you're kind of wired.
So the sleep schedule's off. She was like, why don't you go to bed? So I stay up, and then, you know, especially when I haven't eaten properly or consistently through the day, I'm wide awake and hungry at 2:00, and we have a bag of chocolate chips. Seems like a good thing to do, right? Yeah. So, you know, you do that for a couple of months, and all of a sudden you're like, how did I gain 20 pounds? You know, why don't I feel so good? Well, you know,
it all adds up
if you look for it. So I had to fight against stuff like that. I have a good plan, but whether or not I stick to it is always the thing.
Well,
it's hard for all of us though to like do the thing we know we need to do. Like it's just hard to, you know, when you're tired or you've been at a gig all night or whatever it is, it's like, man, that just sounds like so much work to do the thing I need to right now.
Right. Yeah. That 20 to 30 minutes that exercise is going to take seems like this big project. Too much, can't do it. No. But I can lay around miserable. Yeah.
And
I saw that you have a thing for chocolate. So, I mean,
I do have a thing for chocolate. It worries me a little bit. It really does. You know, like.
And you live in Lidditz, so you've got that Wilbur chocolate.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. The kids, when the kids lived at home, we would occasionally get like junk cereal. Like I have a thing for chocolate and like certain icings and stuff. So once in a while we get a junk cereal and like Frosted Flakes, and they would get 2 boxes, and on the one with the Sharpie they would write "Not for you, Dad." So they knew that they had 1 box for themselves, because once I got started on the 1 box, I mean that was it. If I was up too late doing this stupid stuff I mentioned earlier, I mean, a night or two, that box was gone.
Oh yeah, so, it's hard to stop once you get started. I get it.
Yeah. I know that's by design, because they pump it with chemicals and all that stuff, but just why I shouldn't eat that stuff to begin with. But you know, Sometimes you can't help it.
I think probably a lot of careers are like this, but I feel like this is such a thing for, like, we have odd schedules and we like work at
Mhm.
odd times and then you eat at odd times. And like, I sustained myself completely on popcorn for like 4 years through grad school and out the other side. And it's still like my favorite snack in the entire world. But there reached a point where I was like, I have to stop doing this. Like, popcorn is not dinner. Popcorn is not dinner and a snack. Like, so I feel like we all get into these little like cycles of just like,
Yeah.
this is what I can manage right now.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah, for sure.
My wife is really good with that stuff. Like it can be in the house. She can know where it is, sit in front of her. She'll have like 2 bites and then she'll
Oh,
but I'm like, we can't have it.
Yeah.
She's like, just because you have a problem, I can't have ice cream or chocolate. I'm like, yeah.
just start
Sorry.
get a separate refrigerator and lock it
Yes,
up.
with a padlock. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
There's those
Oh, God.
boxes now you can put your phone in and to put a timer on them. You can do that with your
Oh,
fridge.
yeah?
You can put one of those
Ah.
like only opens for like 2 hours or whatever it is.
Yeah, you could be onto something.
Yeah. I would be very angry like all the time, I think,
Yeah.
if I did that. So, but I also wanted to talk to you too about all the recordings that you have done. You have recorded quite a few CDs. How many have you done?
I think it might be 24, something like that, somewhere
Okay.
between 20 and 30. But I
Okay.
mean, they're not like full CDs. It's me playing a track or two on someone else's record, and
Yeah, right.
it's all local stuff.
Mhm.
The only thing that I've done that's me is the Cat's Pajamas Old School Jazz Band, which is the traditional or Dixieland band.
Mhm.
We did that. I think it was 2018,
Mhm.
and then we have this. My jazz group is playing at Telus every other Thursday, and they call it Jazz on King. So we recorded some of that stuff last summer. The three of us did, but that's still that's not out yet. We're
Mhm.
just trying to figure out the best route to go with that, and have some other post-production stuff to do with it. But I think that should be a fun one when it comes out. But everything else is just, someone needed a trumpet on a couple tracks, so I
Mhm.
got to do it.
Right. Right.
Yeah. It's been fun though. There's a lot of great places like to do recording projects in Lancaster,
Mhm.
for for the size of the area. I mean, there's some
Mhm.
really high quality stuff.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's great.
Yeah,
Yeah, in
there's some
fact,
great studios.
we just recorded an episode with Faith Schiffer, who
Yeah.
was on the Cat's Pajamas.
Yes,
Right?
yeah. She's a Cat's Pajamas clarinet player.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So I've been listening to a lot of that, but which is great. It's great.
Cool, thanks.
Yeah, so good. So, and then I also one more thing. I wanted to ask you about your Fulginiti Family Band, and tell me what that's about.
Well, that's funny because it just kind of started as something fun to do. Like the kids were like, I think Allie's my youngest. I think she was in junior high at the time, and Bailey was mid high school. So, we just mess around doing music and stuff. And we always knew that Bailey was real serious about music, and Allie was also, she was into it, but she was not going to do music as a career or anything. We kind of, I mentioned this band Riders in the Sky, and we kind of like that stuff. And we're like, well, what would happen if we just recorded it just to see what it sounded like, And so we went to a friend's house to record it, and and it was like, because there was sister tension, and there was some just, I'm in the recording studio, what am I doing here tension, and I was like, it's just for fun, don't worry about it. But that didn't really go over. So and so at the end of it, Bailey and her boyfriend Tom, who plays bass and some guitar, we did kind of just an off the cuff impromptu version of Jingle Bells. And we had intended to try to record a Christmas song and use it as a fundraiser for a charity. And so out of that first session, that's the thing that we kept. Everything else was kind of like, I use the football analogy that if I'm the coach, I was learning what my players' skill sets are in that session. And we don't really have much to show for it, but it made sense for later. So we did that Jingle Bells tune, and we raised a few $100s for Music for Everyone. But we liked doing that, and so we've done it every year since then. And now we have five Christmas tunes. It's fun for me because I do the arrangements, and then I just run it by the kids and make sure that they're okay, and they like it. But I think they're just like, yeah, just let Dad do his thing, whatever. We'll do. But I'm glad they keep like appeasing me and doing it. But yeah, so 2 of the last 3 years, we raised money for Dave Castarello and his project that he calls My People on the Streets. So Dave is he has DC and Company, like the blues band, and so I knew him from that. But he takes care of the people that live on the streets, usually over by across the street from Brunswick Hotel, Bids Park. There's anywhere, I think, from 15 to this year up to, like, I think he said 35 or 40 people who, for whatever reason, don't get into shelters or won't go. And he brings them clothes and food. Sometimes he makes the food himself. Sometimes he gets a local, person to a business to donate it. But he's doing this by himself, mostly at his own expense. And, and with the money that people give him. If you go in his house, he's got like, large coats here. Here's the medium pile. Here's men's shirts. It's like, it's amazing. And yeah, the guy's awesome. He's like, he's a saint. So he does this on his own. And so this year and 2 years ago, we, the money that we raised from our family band Christmas single went to him.
Great.
Other groups we've done are Meals on Wheels, and I think it was one of the environmental groups was trying to plant 1 million trees, so we tried to help them last year. But so the family band is basically, that's all we do, plus some family weddings, family and friend weddings and stuff like that. But it's definitely a project unto itself because Allie lives in Towson and she's a nurse, so she's kind of like, and man, that nursing schedule is rough. So, if we can get her up and get her involved, that's good. But it's not like a band that we actively book, but we love doing stuff together.
But that's so great.
Especially the recording with your kids. Yeah, it's fun. And I'm lucky that Bailey, my other daughter, is a singer. So several years ago, I decided I'm just going to try to get her on as many of my gigs as possible to get her going, get her on the scene, get, people to know her and get her experience in that. So we still do a lot of stuff together. She's a great singer, really good jazz singer too. So it's fun. And it's easy for me because I don't play as much trumpet on those gigs. I'm mostly playing cajon and a little trumpet. So keeps my chops fresh.
Yeah, that's cool. Yeah.
She does all the work. Yeah.
So have you worked on ear training and theory with her?
No. No. She talks about it. She went to Muhlenberg for music, and they had some ear training and stuff, but what I had at Millersville was a lot more intense. And so we talk about that, but it's not happening. I'm taking voice lessons from her. And I'm like, hey, I'll trade voice lessons for ear training lessons. But she's like, oh, yeah, we should do that. It's kind of like when you say, oh, we should really get together. And you're not. I feel like that's the vibe I get from her when she says that. We're not doing it.
Aw, so cute. So do you have any upcoming projects that you're working on? Like any other recordings coming up?
Not officially. Well, I'm hoping to get the Jazz on King thing out in the spring or summer, and I'd like to just record another one of those. So we'll probably do that over the summer.
Okay.
And but that's it. Everything else is just like something I'd like to do at some point. But Yeah, I have this New Orleans style brass band called Dutchy Funk, and I have a bunch of original stuff for them, but you know, we don't get together that much. So we that needs rehearsed, played through, revised, all that stuff. And I have a bunch, believe it, last year I wrote about 20, 25 like funk pop songs, mostly in January and February, and they only need lyrics. I'm not a lyric guy, so I would like to at some point. I'd like to record them and see what they sound like with the real things in there.
Mhm.
You know, I mean,
Yeah.
yeah, it's fun.
Yeah, that's
But
great.
yeah, I mean, the immediate plans, no, not really.
Yeah.
Just maybe another Jazz on King thing. So,
Right. Okay.
yep.
Cool. Well, that's awesome, Todd. Thank you so much for
Thank you for having me. It was fun talking to you guys.
Yeah.
Yeah. I love hearing other people's perspectives on things. And no, thank you so much. And
Thank you.
it's just fascinating. So
Yeah.
and thank you to our listeners. We're so glad that you're out there supporting us. If you ever have the chance, please give us feedback. We love constructive criticism. We love to, I think. We love to hear from our listeners, especially if you have any questions or suggestions as to who you might enjoy an interview of, or if you would like to sponsor any of our episodes. We have lots of musicians and students of musicians listening in, so please contact us at lifebetweenthenotes@gmail.com. You can also find us on Facebook, Instagram, and video versions can be found on our Life Between the Notes YouTube channel. Follow us at all of these places and wherever you listen to your favorite podcasts. And with that, have a great day. And thank you, Morgan and Todd.
Thank you guys.
Wave.
Great talking to you.